Had them going somewhere, a different direction, but I think they ended up going best player available. He was in contention for, best player in that class. And I think, GM kind of sat back and said, this is a no-brainer selection for us. Let's not force need. We're a rebuilding team. We just got to take the best guy. And he really panned out for them. I think the whole holdout situation obviously was unfortunate, but I think after, I think he ended up sitting out 5 games coming in week 5 against my Raiders, I have to say, had a very dominant performance. Everyone kind of forgot about the whole thing. And I know there are some media flack right now that he's not attending voluntary workouts, but apparently he's working with a personal trainer in Florida right now, trying to perfect his own skills before joining the team. I think he was an outstanding selection. He's really panned out for them. Moving to day 2, I think Hunter Henry is obviously the heir apparent to Antonio Gates. He had a fantastic season as a rookie, and I think this might be, and I hate to say it, Gates' maybe last season here with the Chargers, especially with the relocation. I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to move forward with them. So I think they're ready to hand the torch to Hunter Henry, and I think he's going to take it full stride. Max Turk out of USC is going to compete with Matt Slauson this year for a starting role. He was hurt all last season, so I think him trying to get healthy, get back to this is the guy they want to be their center for the future. Matt Slauson is an aging veteran who put together a strong 2016 campaign, but he doesn't have a lot more years left in the tank. So I think Turk is going to try and take over there. Obviously, we don't even touch on this, but another fantastic selection for them on day 3 of the draft when they go in the 5th round, grab Jatavius Brown out of Akron. He's been outstanding for them. Help them get rid of the Manti Te'o saga. Help them kind of alleviate that pain of them letting him test the free agent waters this offseason. I think him and Denzel Perriman, the guy out of Miami, they are going to form a dynamic duo in the middle that they have had in a very, very long time. The Chargers are in need of a physical presence on the defensive side of the ball that they haven't had since a Junior Seau. And I think you bring this to the Chargers, it's an identity, this defense, that really hasn't had. And I think pairing him with Perriman, I don't mean to make the double wordplay there, but I think that's obviously solid. Now, I think this 2016 draft class has a lot of world of talent. I'm going to move down all the way to Derek Watt. Pair him up with Melvin Gordon, it made too much sense. Be able to snare him in the 6th round and, pair a guy that had struggled, wasn't able to score a touchdown in his rookie season with his, former fullback, able to build that camaraderie, able to find a friend in the locker room. And next thing you know, he puts up 10 in the next season. Should have had 1,000 yards if he didn't go down with the injuries. Then, lastly, Donovan Clark, I think, 7th round pick, fringe guy. He's going to try and start, but I think in this year's draft class, and I think this maybe serves as a good transition, they need to find a replacement that can start above Donovan Clark, because I don't think he's ready for the nod at either of the guard positions, especially with an ailing Orlando Franklin, who, both those guards is probably put together one of the worst duos in terms of the guard position right now.
Yeah, the 2016 draft class, honestly, in my opinion, this was their focal point to, rebuild. They got Joey Bosa. I mean, when was the last time you've heard an NFL, a rookie, missing out 5 games, and then all of a sudden he makes that huge presence, then he wins Defensive Rookie of the Year? Yeah, I've never seen that, and that's just a big focal point. I've been comparing Joey Bosa, not physically to the stature, but I said that Joey Bosa is going to be the next J.J. Watt. And you know what? Last season really cemented that. I think that, this is the guy that the Chargers really needed. 2015 was probably the best draft the Chargers has ever had since what? If I can just go back in time. You can even, speak up for it as well. I mean...
It's been a long... I mean, you could maybe even date it all the way back to when they were able to end up take Phillip Rivers. And I think they got Kading in that draft, too, I want to say. The kicker that ended up being very strong for them too. I guess kicker's not that big, but they haven't had this kind of haul to where they bring in a franchise cornerstone like Bosa will be, like Hunter Henry should be. Jatavius Brown has that potential. Those cornerstone players, similar to if I had to relate it to the Raiders draft in 2014 when they bring in a Derek Carr, a Khalil Mack, a Gabe Jackson, some cornerstone pieces that you're going to want to extend deep into their career. This draft class has the potential to turn them over to the next, into this next level, especially going to Los Angeles. But a very important thing that the Raiders were able to do was to compound draft classes with following up with a very strong draft class. Because if you only have one gem, it's going to be very hard to take from, a team that's kind of bottom feeding around 5-6 wins a season to a playoff bound team, especially in as hard of the division AFC West is.
Now, you mentioned Manti Te'o, his departure. Personally, in college, I was a big fan of Manti Te'o, one of the best linebackers, at Notre Dame, and even in that draft class. Falling to the Chargers, I was very ecstatic for it, but he just did not work out for the Chargers. So, I kind of, do I like the, subtraction of Manti Te'o? Yes, because it's getting another opportunity for Jatavis Brown, including a Joshua Perry. I think Joshua Perry should have a much bigger role in that Chargers defense, besides just being on special teams. I think he actually led the team in special teams tackles last year. And do you expect a increase in play for Joshua Perry in 2017?
I think a guy that's gonna be a little overlooked as well is I think he went to Cal Poly. You have Dzubnar. He is a guy that I think has struggled with injuries, and he could maybe rotate into that third inside linebacker role along with Joshua Perry. I think those two, that's going to be a very heated competition in camp. I think Dzubnar has a lot of talent, and former undrafted free agent, playing in Division III, you're not going to get a lot of love there. I think him and Perry have, potential to compete for the third rotational inside linebacker, but I have to admit that Chargers and are going to lean on those two guys, Denzel and Jatavis, in front. Barring an injury, you can see Josh Perry find a starting role, but I think those guys, they want to be three down linebackers and really build that identity on defense.
So, but like I said, this was a draft that really is going to cement, the team going forward. So before we make that transition to talking about the 2017 stuff, I want to get your thoughts. This was an offseason that had a lot of fan backlash. And, from the move, up to Los Angeles, first and foremost, we're here talking about the Los Angeles Supercharged. I know you're also a writer for RaidersWire. We'll get to some Raiders questions down the line. But I want to hear, some background information on yourself. This is the first time we've ever done an interview, and please, tell the fans about yourself. And it's a real honor to have you on the show. Like I said, I've been reading ChargersWire, even the NFL Wire, and the entire the whole wire over on USA Today. So please tell us about yourself. It's a real honor to have you on.
Nice. And you speak to my Oakland Raider roots. I'm an Oakland, California native. I came down to San Diego here to go to school at San Diego State. I'm on pace to graduate in May. Writing right now with Fox Sports San Diego, a little bit covering some Aztec stuff there, some Padres, kind of staying in that San Diego feel. Also had some opportunities with the AHL affiliate San Diego Gulls. And then I also have an internship here with USA Today, doing the RaidersWire and ChargersWire sites there. Meant to kind of be a homer site similar to an SB Nation. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they're trying to build that mantra to where we have team-specific sites to come for team-specific news. So kind of covering the beat for both those teams right now. I've been an AFC West writer for a long time. That's kind of where my skill set has been over the last 3 years. I've had opportunities with Fox Sports. I've also am a part-time analyst with Pro Football Focus, doing a lot of behind-the-scenes film work with them. I'm a big film guy, big film junkie. I got into this business to watch film. I got into this business to kind of tailor myself to the NFL draft. So finding myself with Pro Football Focus and USA Today is just hoping to build the background enough to kind of catapult myself into something bigger down the road. But I'm trending up as of now and hope to continue to trend up.
And, me being a writer, I'm an aspiring writer, going to ASU and everything like that. I've always looked at these sites, SB Nation, USA Today Sports. I wanted to make my own website, and that's what I'm doing with 365. I want to do, something that can, fans can come in, get my opinion on it, and also spread the news on what's going on in sports. But I've always wanted to speak to somebody, personally, being a fan here, I've always wanted to, talk to, a Chargers beat reporter. I've always tried to shoot for the stars. But when I came across ChargersWire, I was just impressed with, your guys' work over there. It's tremendous work, and you have a huge resume, and I'm like I said, I'm honored, and this is a big privilege of me to actually have the time to speak with you, Austin. It's a big honor, and I really do appreciate your time coming on here and talking to us and talk about some Chargers, man. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the praise, man. I'm nothing too big. I'm just a big football fan just like yourself.
All right, so let's get right into this. And like I said, this was a huge offseason. We got a lot to cover, got a lot to talk about. Austin, I don't know how much time I have with you. So I want to get right into it, and let's just attack these questions I have for you. Now, like I said, we just recapped the 2016 Chargers draft class, but let's go into 2017. This is a Chargers team that moved from San Diego to Los Angeles. A lot of fan backlash. I was on the ride of, save our bullets keeping him in San Diego. There were so many opportunities that the Chargers could have stayed in San Diego, but our owner, I will not say his name, decided to take us to Los Angeles, which I'm still okay with. This is a Chargers team that I grew up watching. My father got me into the Chargers. This is my team. I am not going to turn my back on this team. I love them. This is this is my all-time favorite team in all of professional sports. The Chargers. That I'm not going to turn my back on them. Moving up to Los Angeles. What are your thoughts on this move? And feel free. This is an open forum. Let's hear it.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, I think overall the move just left a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of San Diego fans. The way he did it, not necessarily where he went or when he went, it's the way he went. And moving to Los Angeles, vying to Los Angeles, ignoring maybe some other options here in San Diego, and then as soon as the deal is done, Twitter account is changed, leaves just a letter via Twitter in a note section of an iPhone, what it looks like, to the fans of San Diego. Not even a press conference, not even a media opening availability to announce the move. It was poor taste overall. You don't make that decision to move a franchise that has been there for X amount of years, decades, over a Twitter post and then change the logo 3 times in the first 2 weeks. It was a sour move, and I think that's why a lot of fans are burning jerseys and things like that and trading in stuff here in San Diego. As a San Diego State student, you see a lot of fans San Diego State is doing a thing to where you can turn in San Diego Charger gear or Aztec gear for free of charge, and making that transition. Everyone's kind of buying season tickets here. They have a record amount of season tickets here for San Diego State Aztecs to kind of go with the move. I think overall the way he did it was bad, but it's going to be very tough now that they have done it. The Rams are failing there right now. They're in a stadium that only seats 35,000 people, and it's going to be tough to fill that. There's a very strong Raiders presence there that is dominating both the Rams and will dominate the Chargers. I think, and there's only one way to fix it. And I think everyone says, bring LT into management and do all these other things. The only way to fix it is to win. And once they start winning, everyone forgets everything. Similar to a Bosa. It's obviously not the same regard in terms of relocation. Bosa holds out for 5 games. In his first game, he doesn't make a single pressure and has a very terrible game. Maybe costs them the game. People will just absolutely torch him overall as a player. He comes in, has 2 sacks on Derek Carr, one of the best offensive lines in the country. I don't even remember anyone who remembers the holdout. People forgot it instantly. If the Chargers can come out and win in 2017, which will be easy, the fans will be more willing to move past it. But the way they did it overall, and I think I've said it already, was just a very poor way of doing things.
Now, I've been following this team, like it's like no tomorrow. I was wanting to get all the inside scoop, something that I can just, voice my opinion about. But what's, is this when you talk about, the stadium and they're going playing at the StubHub, the StubHub area, where when you look at it, they said that the season tickets have officially been sold out. Now, is this a Chargers-Rams season tickets, or is this just, strictly the Chargers season tickets?
So I think it's tough to kind of what they're gauging us on that. They want to, obviously they're pushing season tickets in StubHub. They're pushing season tickets in with the Rams, but they're not able to build that following yet, just because Los Angeles is such a split city right now. Both teams are struggling with season ticket sales because they haven't found their one team. Unlike basketball, it's where it's about 90% or upwards in the high percentage of Lakers fans, just because they've been so dominant over the years, and then Clippers fans are just starting to grow as they increase the Blake Griffin, Chris Paul saga. I think once either team starts pulling ahead in terms of wins, that's when you're going to start to see increase in season ticket sales.
Right. So, not only that was the move the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things. Some other things that, really people do not really talk about 100% is, the head coaching moves. I know we got Anthony Lynn coming over here from the Buffalo Bills, but on top of that, defensive coordinator, former head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Gus Bradley. I was ecstatic when I heard Gus Bradley is coming to the Los Angeles Chargers. Gus Bradley back in Seattle actually, made the Legion of Boom. And I honestly think the Chargers have this piece is to have a Legion of Boom point 2, you could say, or volume 2, whatever you guys want to put it as. I think that if this team drafts well, there's been rumors of them going, defensive back in the draft in the first round. But before we get into those will be part of our draft questions. This is going to be an interesting, defensive shakeup. I think Gus Bradley runs a 4-3 defense, which is going to give Bosa more time on the field. What do you think about Gus Bradley coming to Los Angeles? And do you expect, a lot of big things? And do you think there could be a Legion of Boom point 2?
I love the Gus
2.0.
Bradley move. I'm with you on that. I think Gus Bradley moving him out of a position where he's making all the decisions as a head coach. He's got the biggest headset on the sideline. I think bring him back down to defensive coordinator where he thrived with Seattle. A lot of defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators turned head coaches really turn back the page and begin to excel again. Similar to Wade Phillips when they come back into a decreased role. I think we're going to see that with Gus Bradley, especially with this defense. He has the two edge rushers that can pin their ears back and absolutely attack the passer. And I think more so than he needs a premier safety, and I think this is something that's getting overlooked. I don't think he needs a premier safety to create this Legion of Boom in San Diego, or in Los Angeles, so I apologize. I think he can create one out of a Jaleel Addae, and I think because he's so talented in grooming these safeties and creating talented safeties, that I think they can maybe avoid taking a safety so high because of the success they've had with Dwight Lowery and Jaleel Addae, and move with another position. Maybe there's some thought at wide receiver. Give Phillip Rivers another weapon with the and I know we're getting a little draft here, but with the ever so injured Keenan Allen, I think Gus Bradley is going to improve a lot of players that people think are already not that good. I think he's a very good pick, and we're going to see this defense get a lot better in comparison to last season, especially in terms of turnovers. I think he's a turnover-happy defensive coordinator, something the Chargers could really use.
So I was reading up on the Chargers Wire as always, and I think it was one of your writers or Zach Rainey. He made an article talking about the 2017 draft and how number 7 could be a big focal point upon trades come draft day or day one. Could there possibly be a Chargers draft or a draft day trade that could probably send the Chargers up? Could they send them down? I don't think they want to go down. Could there be a possible trade for the Chargers to go up? Because I think Zach actually has the Chargers trying to trade up and get Solomon Thomas. I think that would be an excellent addition, having the Chargers move up from 7 to 4. What do you think that there's a possibility that this could happen?
I think, in terms of trade, Telesco is a guy that has a past of trading up in drafts. I think it's a little too rich for me, in Zach's opinion, to kind of go up a couple picks on an overall roster and a team that maybe has more holes than they'd like. I like a trade back scenario for a team that's trying to maybe move a couple more spots to grab one of those QBs up top before maybe some of the middle teams get there, or even to grab one of the best safeties in this class, either whether it be Jamal Adams or Malik Hooker. If the Chargers have a trade partner down the road, down back into the first round, where they can gain more picks and really bolster this roster that could use a couple guys here and there, maybe more than just one perennial player, I like a trade back. I think that's a scenario they will look at, but honestly, in my opinion, I think former LSU safety Jamal Adams is one of the best players in this class. And with some of the mocks seeing him fall all the way to number 7, Tom Telesco should jump at the opportunity to bring Adams into the locker room just because of how talented he is and how he can bring one of the best players available and address somewhat of a need at number 7.
Now, I want to ask you, would you, if you had Malik Hooker, because, this also goes on to a question down the line. Now, if Malik Hooker and Jamal Adams are on the clock, you'd obviously go Jamal Adams. But what are the odds of the Chargers actually going with Malik Hooker over Jamal Adams?
I think the odds are there. I just think Malik Hooker brings that high ceiling playmaker, difference maker to the table. But the reason I think if both are on the board at that point, they end up going Jamal Adams because of the red flags that surround Malik Hooker. You have the injury concerns. Didn't participate at the combine. Had some offseason, I think, abdominal surgery, and then you also have the one-year wonder, potential. He only had 1 year of starting experience at Ohio State in a secondary that boasts 2 first-round corners in Garyon Conley and Marshawn Lattimore. So you're already surrounded with a lot of talent that can maybe have masked some of his, poor tackling ability, in my opinion. Sometimes his instincts is a little late to step there. I think if you want to go with the high ceiling pick and Adams isn't there, you maybe take a chance on Hooker just because he has so much potential. He has Ed Reed-like potential. But when you look at Jamal Adams, he has similar potential to maybe an Eric Berry and a super, super high floor, a standard starter floor, in my opinion. Unlike Malik Hooker, who could possibly tank at the next level just because he's maybe not used to playing with not star corners on the outside or against star talent in NFL talent.
Now, since the start of the whole 2017 draft process, the Chargers have been linked to multiple positions, ranging from the starting, I think it was wide receiver, that a lot of people had Mike Williams from Clemson going there. A lot of people were still not, set on Keenan Allen. Is he going to be 100%? I heard he's at 89% the last time I checked up, so he's well on his way for heavy more workouts. But going down the line, there's been a lot of jumping ships of position on where the Chargers could go. Malik Hooker, safety, obviously, we need to replace Eric Weddle. We have not found that, solidified player to replace him. But also, I think it was Bucky Brooks even said Deshaun Watson, quarterback from Clemson, taking that number 7 to the Chargers. Where do you think the Chargers stand on drafting a quarterback in this year's draft? Or because I think I've read a piece on ChargersWire that even Nathan Peterman, a quarterback from Pittsburgh, who I think will be a great option for the Chargers to really develop, because Phillip Rivers is not going to play for another 10 or 12 years. He's not getting any younger. He's getting older, and they need to start developing a quarterback and fast. I was not a big fan of when they drafted Brad Sorensen. I like Mike Bercovici from Arizona State, a guy who I've seen, seeing in the front row at ASU games on a yearly basis. When he was at ASU, he has a huge arm, but he's just not the guy to really take over for Rivers. Is this a draft class where they finally find their guy? I've always felt maybe a guy like Shane Carden in draft past, but he turns out to not even be in the league. He was not even the greatest, so that that was my mistake. But is this the draft where the Chargers finally be like, okay, we really need to get something going. We need to find our future after Rivers, because the Giants are also doing the same thing.
And I think I'm glad, before we move on to that question, I'm glad you brought up Shane Carden, East Carolina University grad, used to play with Justin Hardy and Zay Jones, had a very talented career with the Pirates, and I thought he was going to pan out into maybe a 7th-round flyer that could maybe be a potential backup in the NFL. But I think I think you're right in that he has moved on. I think we both missed him on that. But moving to the question, I think this is a draft where they can bring in, groom a quarterback behind Phillip Rivers if they see one good in maybe day 2 and day 3. They will not spend their number 7 overall pick on any of the quarterbacks in this class, just because it's not a pressing need. And in this class, the quarterbacks aren't good enough and aren't great enough to warrant such a selection so high in the draft if you aren't in a desperate need for a QB. I think if they see a Davis Webb, Cal Berkeley, maybe at the top of the 2nd round, maybe if Mahomes slips into the top of the 2nd round, those are some guys that you see at the top of the 2nd round. Maybe they want to draft them. Maybe they like them enough. They'll take them. But at number 7 overall, it's too rich for me to see them go Deshaun Watson's route. I think Deshaun Watson even slips outside of the top 16 picks, where you start to see Houston drafting, Kansas City, some of those teams that are also trying to maybe breed a QB or start a QB. I don't think they go Deshaun Watson at number 7. However, day 2 comes around, they start to like a guy, or even day 3 for a Nathan Peterman. I think that makes more sense for the Chargers, especially where they're at right now.
Now, I'm going to be switching around some subjects. We might be going back to some. Now, we just talked about Jamal Adams and Malik Hooker. Now, the Chargers I don't know if they brought him in for a workout or anything of that nature, personal workouts or any sort of interview or walk around from the stadium, just, getting a feel of what it's like to be a potential Charger. What are the chances that, say Jamal Adams is off the board and, Malik Hooker, are the Chargers are really risking it drafting Malik Hooker even though he has not, partaked in anything, this offseason? I don't know if he did his pro day. I'm pretty sure that he did. But can you clarify with that with me?
I don't think they are taking a risk in, taking Malik Hooker just because he is one of the best players in this class. He has the athleticism. He has everything you want in a safety and what you hope he can be at the next level, as long as he can translate that, get move past the injury, and really step into Weddle's shoes. He's not going to be able to replace Weddle's beard, but he will be able to maybe place the leadership and the talent wise. Now I do want to confirm that they haven't had an opportunity to meet with Malik Hooker this offseason. They have expressed interest in Jamal Adams, I think, over via phone call. I don't think or at his pro day they might have had a side conversation. But as I've noted previously, the Chargers are a team that don't really like to let outside sources know where they are going. No one really tagged them for Joey Bosa. And yes, everyone's tagging them for safety just because they are the best players, but I think they're avoiding bringing those guys in to get that tag to their name, and so everyone's already overwhelmingly think that Malik Hooker or Jamal Adams is their one of their guys. I think, to go back to whether it's a risk, I don't think Malik Hooker is a risk, but I do think he's more of a risk than Jamal Adams. Between the two, I'll go Adams. But at number 7 overall, if they feel like he can be their guy, if they feel like he can replace Weddle and step into his shoes, get past the injury, get past the 1 year, and excel, I trust in Telesco's judgment, and I think he makes the pick.
So the Chargers bring in Malik Hooker. I kind of wanted this to happen. I want them to either get Jamal Adams. I was originally a big fan of Jamal Adams going to the Chargers at number 7, but there's been a lot of interest from the Titans. I think even the Chicago Bears were also in play for him because that defensive backs core in Chicago is horrendous. Just look at last year.
Whoa. I'm a big fan of Adrian Amos, man. I think Adrian Amos is kind of rising in Chicago. Not to say that they don't need a safety. I don't think they pass on Jamal Adams just because they have that Adrian Amos, but I think he's the guy that you're going to start to see if they can start building some cornerback talent and some pass rushing talent so he doesn't have to do it all on his own. He could be that role player in their defense that could play well. I don't think it's necessarily as atrocious just because he's there. And if you get Fuller, try and find the little talent that Fuller had at Virginia Tech and put it into Chicago, I think the secondary can turn around, and they can turn around with maybe a star player like Jamal Adams or Malik Hooker at number 3 overall.
Yeah, I would like, I would love the pairing to see Jamal Adams there because I think Jamal Adams, and Adrian Amos also being there, that's going to be an excellent, two guys to build around in that defense. But when you go back at last season, the defensive line, the linebacker, it was just, they were getting burned.
I totally agree. They
were getting burned. They just need a whole new, replace everything, out there in Chicago. But the Chargers, this is a team that, when you look at it, you bring in one of these guys, whether it's, a Malik Hooker or a Jamal Adams, but what does that, put forward for, Dwight Lowery? I know Dwight Lowery's not, the greatest name to have on the field, but, he was okay. I'm not saying he was blowing me out of the water. I mean, he was okay, last season with the team, but, does that put his job ultimately in jeopardy, or does this put, does it officially, give him that, that pink slip out of Los Angeles?
I think he'll definitely be kicked into a primary depth role. He's an aging guy, a little bit long in the tooth, in my opinion. And if they are going to bring in either of the two safeties, they're going to want to see him play early, especially because something that we maybe have overlooked is that this is their first draft of the Los Angeles location. There's a lot of pressure on this draft. They want to bring in jersey sales. They want to bring in someone that everyone's going to fall in love with, that can play early and play dominant. I think if they bring in the guy at number 7 overall that has a position on the field already ready to go, I think they easily move Dwight Lowery into a backup role. Obviously keep him on special teams. I don't think he's all the way out of Los Angeles, but I think whoever they end up taking, especially if it's a safety at number 7, they're going to try and put on the field as soon as possible.
Now let's make that transition over to the running back game. Now this has been an interesting, running back draft class, stacked top to bottom in talent, and one guy that really stands out, one of the biggest, topics of the running back class. Obviously, it's going to be Joe Mixon. Now the Chargers did, have, possible interest in Joe Mixon, as a bunch of teams are also. Good talent, great talent, but the only thing that's holding over his head was that issue back in 2014 when he punched a woman. I guess it was at a restaurant or whatever the case may be. That has been settled. That's still going to be, cause of concern, character issues. Now, the Chargers have been a team that has lost running backs in the past, including this offseason when they lost Danny Woodhead, which came to a surprise for me. I want you to, get your thoughts on that as well. But they also have, an injury-prone Brandon Oliver. They brought him back when they also acquired Kenyon Barner from the Eagles, or they signed him in free agency. Now, is running back a position, we can address in the later rounds of the draft, or do you feel confident that, that Barner could be our number 2 back for Melvin Gordon?
I think if they are, to touch on Danny Woodhead, I think he's just a little old. I think it made sense that maybe he's leaving. I think he's nearing 30 or at 30 years old. I think they just didn't have enough, they want to move forward with Brandon Oliver, and I think they had their sights set on Kendrick Barner early in the offseason. Now, I don't think this is, with the Joe Mixon you were mentioning, I don't think that's the guy they want to take in the first or second round, because I think that's where he's going to go. He might surprise some people at the bottom of the first round, but I do not think Mixon, given the reports I've heard, given what coaches are saying, what scouts are saying, he does not leave the second round. And I think with Melvin Gordon penciled in as the bell cow, I don't think they waste a pick that early, especially with other heat needs. But if they want to look for maybe a change of pace back later in the draft, there are other guys that I do like. Elijah McGuire out of Louisiana Tech, I think he's going to be a 5th to 6th round gem that can do it all that Danny Woodhead did for them in terms of pass catching, being that jitterbug in the backfield. I think that's a target they could look at. And I think they do avoid Mixon at the top of the class, but moving on to guys like McGuire towards the back end makes a lot of sense to them, especially if they're looking for a pass catching back. As we all know, Melvin Gordon has had some success catching the ball in the NFL, but at Wisconsin he had little to no experience catching the ball because they leaned on Corey Clement. And now Melvin Gordon's trying to transition to a receiving back, which is not an easy skill. So moving to someone who is a proven receiver, like some of these other backs later in the class, day 3 guys, I think makes a lot of sense to them, especially with Brandon Oliver and the injury concerns. Kenjon Barner is an unproven back by all means. I think that if they want to secure a guy with a little bit of potential that can come in, similar to how maybe a Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington did for the Raiders last year, I think that's the route they go on day 3.
No, the Chargers have always had that. You had your primary running back, and obviously that's Melvin Gordon. Then you had your speedster and Danny Woodhead. What about adding a guy that Donnell Pumphrey from San Diego State?
Mm-hmm. I think that's another great back too. I think Donnell Pumphrey, having been able to watch him first row from press row, seeing his skill set, he's going to be one of those type of backs that is best utilized as a receiver and in the slot, split out wide, mismatch nightmare. Handing him the football in between the tackles, he'll have some highlight plays, but he runs the risk of getting absolutely battered by some of the bigger guys. He only ended up repping at the combine, I think, 5 reps at 225. He's very slim, and his numbers don't even speak to how small this guy is. He's a very skinny guy. He's not compact by any means. You look at some of the other 5'8" running backs in the league, and I'll bring it back to Richard and DeAndre Washington, 5'8", 206 pounds. That is a compact bowling ball at this next level. Pumphrey, on the other hand, is not going to really stretch much farther than 180, and that's at his max. So trying to pound him in between the tackles won't really necessarily happen at the next level. It just hasn't happened, and it won't happen. But if they want to bring him in as that slot receiver type that they haven't really had in San Diego, or I always say San Diego, but Los Angeles, I think that's a thing they could do, especially bringing in a local guy, trying to bring in that local talent or formerly local talent into Los Angeles. I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of improving fan base and overall public relations move.
Now, we got to talk about this offensive line. This has been an offseason yet again, which I said is just full of just interesting things coming from the Chargers. The Chargers are finally getting light on the offseason. Now, the Chargers decided to part ways with DJ Fluker this offseason. I think he was, $8 million a year? He's not worth that. Joe Barksdale has been on a declining, rapidly. Also, they also have Orlando Franklin, who just has not lived up to the expectations, signing that, was a 4 or 5 year deal a couple of years ago. Basically, we're back to rebuilding, this offensive line. King Dunlap is also gone. What are some players, this team could look at if they're going to be addressing offensive linemen? Because it seems like, maybe they're obviously probably going to go, defensive back in the first round. Second round, and below, it's, this is a draft class where they could not, mess up. I remember, I think it was the 03 draft class where they drafted, a bunch of, random names at the bottom. They just wanted to take their first couple of picks. So, they got to draft smart, but, who are some guys that the Chargers could draft on the offensive line, and, where do you see them getting drafted?
I think if they want to target an offensive lineman in the second round, which I think if they do end up targeting him is a fantastic pick, is former Western Kentucky offensive tackle Forrest Lamp. A proven starter at left tackle that will absolutely has Pro Bowl potential as a rookie if kicked into guard. If he either wants to take over Donovan Clark's position, like I've noted before, or even Orlando Franklin, I think he's a guy that could be potentially moved down to right tackle with time, and even left tackle if given some experience and given NFL coaching and able to improve his technique and improve against speedy edge rushers on the side. I think he's athletic enough to deal with interior pass rushers that are maybe a little quicker, but not exterior pass rushers, not those edge rushers like a Khalil Mack or Von Miller. He's not ready for those yet. But I think if you want to target one in the second round, Forrest Lamp makes a lot of sense. Maybe later, maybe third round if they really want to push it back. Deion Dawkins, I think he's another guard prospect that play tackle as well. That can come, play tackle as well. And I think he comes in at guard and he can do a similar thing to what Forrest Lamp could do. And beef up that interior, add some powerful run blocking guys, those maulers, those guys who fight to the echo of the whistle, some bullies in the trenches, and that way, one, improve this mentality that Anthony Lynn's going to want to bring to the table in a running offense, and two, help protect Phillip Rivers in his latter years.
Okay, so we're going to make that transition over from the draft. We covered all the big topics. I want to, the NFL schedule for 2017 just came out. Now, the Chargers have probably one of the most scariest schedules in the league. Some people say, it's a very manageable, schedule. But I think it's going to be very terrifying. In the first 5 weeks, the Chargers get the Broncos, Dolphins, Chiefs, Eagles, and Giants, and then they wrap up their first half of the season with Raiders, Broncos, and Patriots. What are your thoughts on this schedule? This is a very terrifying schedule.
I think overall, the whole AFC West is facing a tough schedule, mainly because 6 of their games are against very good talent. They're going against the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Raiders, and they're going to face those teams twice each. Those are some tough games that it's going to be hard to even split, let alone win either of them. You know what I'm saying? And I think, and you look at the division there. You're playing the AFC East with you got the Pats, who are always a solid team that can pretty much chalk up as an L to most teams in the league. And Dolphins are a rising team. You have the Bills, who I guess maybe you could do a push on that, but this is a very tough schedule, and it's not. I don't think it's something you want, but it's something you're going to have to deal with. And I think it's always a little too early this is maybe my personal opinion, but when strength of schedule comes out and everyone starts to worry and say, this is going to be a very tough season, I think wait it out a little bit. There's a good chance that week to week injuries happen, week to week certain things happen to where the odds come in your favor and the odds don't. Some things that you're chalking up as a pure win, like say maybe the Browns on December 3rd, won't be a pure win if maybe Phillip Rivers, which doesn't really happen, goes down with an injury, or Melvin Gordon's not there. Some of those injuries can happen. I don't think overarching concerns should be created now, but on a week-to-week basis, it's going to be very tough if both teams are full strength. Now, a game I'd like to note is that I think maybe their toughest game is they're going to have to go in to Kansas City on a short week in the heart of December against a division rival on Thursday Night Football. Not easy at all. The wind is going to be insane. It's going to be very cold, and it's similar to what happened to the Raiders when they were on that big win streak. I think they won 6 games in a row. They ended up going into Kansas City. Derek Carr plays the worst game of his NFL career, and it's just not easy to play in the Arrowhead Stadium when it's very, very cold, let alone on a short week. I think that's something that the NFL definitely didn't do them any favors on, and I think that one's you got to pin on your schedule as a very you have to prepare for that one because that's going to be a very tough game.
I'm very concerned. Obviously you have the big primetime games this year. We get Kansas City on NFL Network. We also have the big game, the Dallas Cowboys game on Thanksgiving. I am very excited to see that. Rivers versus Dak Prescott. Hopefully Dak Prescott or hopefully no injuries happen. I really want to see that quarterback battle. Now, Austin, we got a couple more questions before we let you go. I know you're a very busy guy. Once again, thank you so much for your time. Now, on a fan's perspective, here, I feel the Chargers are right on the edge of getting back into the playoffs. This is a team that's loaded with talent, ranging from Joey Bosa, Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon is finally coming out of, is coming, to his, his draft standards. Keenan Allen, just to keep on naming these athletes. You can even play spoiler, say if the Chargers, season did not go down the way that they wanted to, and if they're out of contention down the line. They can even play, spoiler for potential, teams down the line at the end of the year. How far along do you feel, or do you say this Chargers team is until getting back into, their old playoff days?
And to be honest, I think it's a very promising season ahead. I think this is where they maybe take the step before they go into the postseason, though. I think this is a building year to where they push 8 wins, they push 9 wins, and they're on the cusp of a wild card. But because this division is so tough, because you're going to have to go against maybe 3, all 4 of these teams are I think in the caliber that should make the playoffs, but all 4 of them simply can't make it, and that's the kind of what they're going to have to play with. The Raiders and the Chiefs and even the Broncos, even though the Simeon saga I don't think is going to pan out for them, those are very good teams, and all 3 of them could go to the playoffs. Or if the Chargers can slip in and maybe the Broncos spot, that I can see happening. But I think this is the building year to where they really surround the defense with talent. They bring in some more roster additions, and then 2018, when you're able to, really reap the benefits of Joey Bosa and really reap the benefits of Jatavis Brown, the guy that's now a veteran, that's when you see the Chargers maybe go to that transition to old playoff days for maybe 1 to 2 more years of Phillip Rivers' career and really make a push. And then, then you might have to fall back into a rebuild if they aren't already grooming a quarterback for his replacement.
So that covers all the Chargers stuff. One final question, Austin. We're going to jump over to the Oakland Raiders side of things. Now, this offseason, we heard the Raiders are going to be going to Las Vegas in the coming years. What are your thoughts on the Raiders' move? I personally think, it's good. They got to get out of they have to get out of the Oakland Coliseum. That stadium is old. It is just not the greatest for a football field. The Raiders need this move. I like the move to Las Vegas, but why hasn't there been a lot of backlash from the fans, kind of like how the Chargers were moving up to Los Angeles?
I think the backlash, and we'll go back to what I said about the Chargers earlier, is that I think the Raiders have done this with a lot more class. And 2, the Raiders have found a way to put all the blame on Oakland and Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf. Because the Oakland's proposal with Ronnie Lott and that whole foundation was able to come out full front, and the NFL, including Roger Goodell, came out and said this proposal simply won't get it done. In our opinion, it is not a flashy proposal. This will not improve the Oakland Stadium to where we want it to be, and we simply cannot approve it. Therefore, opening the door for Mark Davis to say, hey, I can go to Las Vegas with no public money or with no money on kind of their end and move into Las Vegas with a brand new stadium, a fantastic stadium that will rival the Dallas Cowboys stadium. And, the commissioner obviously wanted them to stay in Oakland, but if Oakland wasn't willing to get a deal done and put forth the effort and put forth the resources to create an Oakland Coliseum that was as luxurious as the one they are creating in Vegas, then he simply couldn't, he couldn't force his hand that way. So Mark Davis kind of put the scapegoat on Libby Schaaf, unlike Spanos. Spanos was the entire what everyone hated about the Chargers move. They thought San Diego was making all the efforts to get it done, and they thought Spanos was the guy cracking the whip and saying, no, we're not staying, no, we're not staying, no, we're not staying. While with the Oakland Raiders move to Vegas, Raiders fans are able to fall in with Vegas with a little bit more ease because they realize now that Oakland, kind of fell short of the mark on their proposal, and it was more their fault than we can blame the Raiders.
All right, Austin, once again, I appreciate your time, and it's been a complete honor. I know you're on social media. Where can the fans find you, your writing, and, make sure you plug all your social media, man. This is your time.
For sure. Well, you follow me at Austin Gayle 53, former football number in high school. Haven't worn it since, but that's where you can follow me. You can also read all my stuff. I'm on RaidersWire of USA Today, ChargersWire of USA Today. I'm also a contributor with SB Nation Maize n Brew, big Michigan fan, writing a lot of Michigan stuff there. And then you can just see me here and there with the Daily Aztec, San Diego State's newspaper, and also listen to my radio show if you'd like on kcr.ssu.edu, San Diego State's radio station. I'm the sports director there. I host a show called Down and Distance. It's a very good show. Talk a lot of NFL draft, talk a lot of football, and I'm excited to have you guys on, and I'm maybe excited to bring you on, Justin, because I think I had a very good time speaking with you.
I really appreciate this. Like I said, just 1,000 times, thank you so much, Austin. You have everything going for you. Hopefully we get to see you and Nick Harwick do a quick segment over there on Fox Sports San Diego. I would love to see that.
I would definitely be down to meet Nick Harwick on the show. Extra 1360 is definitely a favorite of mine, and I would enjoy that as well.
All right, Austin. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully I can have you on here in the coming days, maybe after the draft, and we'll keep in contact, my friend. Thank you so much again.
Sounds good, Justin. Have a good one.
You too.